ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, an all-natural skincare company that helps you glow from head to toe. I am a champion for your daily self-care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness.
And we like to get together every week
and bring expert guests to you to figure out, how do we do this, right? How do we take care of ourselves and thrive in community? And what tools and resources do we need?
Yes.
I was thinking about this the other day because when we talk about our podcast with other people and we interview guests and things like that, we tend to tell them, we want your authenticity, your personal stories, and give our listeners some resources, right?
Yes.
Because we want our listeners to be able to get off and go look something up or use a tool or like to figure it out and figure out if it works for them or not.
Yeah. And this is us. Yes, we share personal stories. We laugh, we talk, but that's just not to just tell stories and have a good time. That's so hey, this happened. This is what I did. This is where I went next. And after you get that information, sometimes it's great to have inspiration, right? But if you're the type of person to look for inspiration, you might have a lot of it. And sometimes that can actually stop you. You might get overwhelmed, right? You might start doing research and get analysis paralysis, and then you don't start. So instead of all of that stuff, we give you a few resources based on our story and that you can put into action from there.
Right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. You talking about paralysis. I was on socials the other day and can't remember if it was when I was at my gate or what, but I saw this really cool thing and somebody was sharing like 6 books that had impacted their life. And I'm a sucker for any of those. But then I'm looking at like, these are like, I was like, oh, I got to get back on my nonfiction reading game or get on one of those apps that gives you the summaries like Blinkist or something like that.
Yes.
There's so many incredible authors out there and there's so many things I want to read about and there's just so many hours in the day.
Hello. And it wasn't just somebody. That was Lupita. Yes, she shared her
that's
book.
when I shared it. Yes.
Yes, I saw you put it in the stories.
Do you know that, the whole 7 degrees of separation?
Isn't it 6 degrees?
Is it 6 degrees?
I think it's 6 degrees.
We're all 6 degrees separation from Kevin Bacon. Is that right? I'm 2 degrees separation from Lupita.
Okay.
So, because I used to go to church with her mom's best friend.
Okay.
And I think she might be her godmother. I can't remember. It's been years.
I was
like, whoa, I've been watching her career. I've been watching her. Like, I'm like, oh, I love her.
Yes. So, I'm here for the melanin and I love it. And I've been watching her story even closer since Chadwick passed away, so I felt like her sharing the books this is what I've been doing. This is what's been helping me. She's been intentional about everything that she's put out and I love to see it. So yeah, that's amazing. She should come on the show. Tell her godmom to have her come talk about occupational wellness and acting.
Right.
Yeah, like
that'd be fun.
That'd be amazing.
All these connections. I love it.
And the last thing I want to share too, where is my book? Before we get into the definition and everything, I was thinking about you also this week because I started reading this book that you got me, The Get Good with Money, right? And I was reading Jenna Banks's book, I Love Me First. And I'm still reading a couple of books, right? Uncle Tom's Cabin, all these things are still on the list. I'm like, I got to finish the books that I've started. But I intentionally changed to this one. Again, being intentional this week, I told you that. Knowing what my needs are. I'm like, let me switch. I'm good on self-confidence and the love battery being filled up, right? Thank you so much, Jenna. The boundaries are strong and persistent, but the good with money, we need to build it on this level that we're at. So sometimes, guys, we talk about the resources. It's okay to switch. If you were using one and you're like, you know what, this is more priority, go ahead and switch so you can be effective with the time that you're at. And the book will be there. The resource will be there when you get good with whatever you need help with right now.
That's awesome.
Yes. Thank you for making sure I have the resources.
Yeah. I was like, I got her that. And then you're more like, I was like, and then I was like, oh, I wanted to read that book when you were done.
That's good. I'm glad you told me this one and B 2.0. I still have it. I'm going to read them.
All right, we've had a few other things going on, right?
Right?
All right. What we're talking about financial wellness today. So you
Yes,
okay if I go ahead and give our listeners the definition?
absolutely.
So the Women Connected in Wisdom definition of financial wellness is an intentional approach to your relationship with money as a tool. It includes stability with current finances, increasing positive financial behaviors like budgeting, reducing debt, saving, and investing. Financial wellness incorporates knowledge and skills that helps to change behavior, reduce financial stress, and creation of a strategic financial plan to reach desired financial goals. Boom.
Yes. So, and I know that we started doing this. What in the definition stands out for you right now where you are in 2024?
I think the last line of the creation of a strategic financial plan to reach desired financial goals. Because I don't think that's a one and done, right? I think that as your life changes, as your where you are, right? Big transitions. I've been going through a lot of big transitions in my life. Like I'm not everyday parenting anymore. My kids are out of the house, but that means I've got two kids in college and one's currently studying abroad. So my goal was, I didn't have the goal that I was going to the Netherlands a year ago. But now I
Right.
have the goal I'm going. And so that directly translates to a financial goal, right? So I think about that. I think about how that shifts as different things in our lives shift. And yeah. What about you?
Yes. Same thing, especially with the intentional approach. I laugh because I just said that. And I know we made these definitions, so we go through this a lot, right? But I've been thinking about what I want to talk to the high schoolers about next month when I go for Women's History Month. And when I talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness, what I tell the students is really about picking where you are right now. Everybody's always like, well, how do you start? How do you focus on all 8? You
Mhm.
don't focus on all 8 at one time. Right? You
Right?
pick which one you need
Right?
help with in this moment, and then you give intentional energy to seeing what you know already, looking for resources, seeing who in your community is a good resource for things like that. So really it's the intentionality behind it. And outside of that, I would say too, we always talk about maintaining wellness, right? We talked about me coming into the businesses and my goals for that. Now, how many months is it? 14 months later, we've published another book. We're about to do another virtual summit, and we have different goals for where we are. So
Mhm.
setting the next 3 to 5 years up
Mhm.
from here is completely different than where I was 14 months ago. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, when you say that, I think about like the only constant is change, right? And I think about for my own self sometimes, like I've thought, oh, okay, this is my goal, my long-term goal, and then I forget to go back and look at it, right? Because it can change. And it can go higher, it can go lower as our circumstances change. And
Right.
I'm just thinking about that today, thinking about um in regards to any of the dimensions of wellness, like the checking in. And your comment about intentionality made me think because I have a client I'm working with that their intention is to speak more,
Right.
right? So we're really having some strategies around that. And it's amazing if you put just an hour a week or an hour intentionally on one topic, like what a difference that can make. As we know, like you can build a business, you
Right.
can have 2 books. I have to, one other thing before we introduce our guest. When you said, oh, let me get your book, I thought, which one? Because I thought you were talking about your books.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a nerd moment right there. The books I
Right?
publish, the books that I read, which one are you talking about? Okay, I like it.
Which fun, right?
Yeah.
Super fun.
Yes.
So
Mm,
I would love for you to introduce our guest and get her up here because
yes.
we have been waiting on this conversation for a couple of months.
Yeah, we have.
And this guest is a mover and a shaker and someone who is doing big things in
Yeah.
Atlanta. So,
Yes. Okay, guys. So today, again, we're talking about financial wellness, and our expert guest is Laura Gibson-Lamothe. So, Laura Gibson-Lamothe serves as Executive Director of the Georgia Fintech Academy, a diverse talent development initiative within the University System of Georgia. In this role, her mission is to help cultivate and develop future fintech talent. She is responsible for the strategic growth of the program across the 26 universities within the system. Georgia Fintech Academy offers a fintech curriculum aligned with the industry, experiential learning opportunities, and hosts events/career fairs throughout the year. Currently, over 5,500 students have come through the program and 1,800 have been placed in fintech full-time jobs. Over 18 years, Laura has held various roles with enterprise leadership responsibility in the financial services, banking, and fintech sectors. She joined the Fintech Academy from Prodiviti, a global consulting firm focused on the finance industry, where she was associate director of the firm's technology consulting practice. Previously, Laura was director of U.S. operations, driving commercial and delivery initiatives for FutureSpace, a UK-based firm specializing in fraud and financial crime detection and management. Earlier in her career, Laura held technology and operation roles at Ally Bank, where she spent 10 years implementing new products and services, including a co-brand credit card product. She previously worked for Wells Fargo and Bank of America, leading enterprise release events and managing various M&A related transition initiatives. In addition to her technology and operational expertise in banking and financial technology, Laura has deep experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion leadership initiatives. She serves on the board of directors of Paytech Women, formerly WNet, and was a member of the 2021 cohort of Money 2020's Rise Up, a program focused on empowering inclusivity and leadership. Her focus has been and continues to be laser focused on providing mentorship, sharing resources, and playing the role of connector across the industry. Help us welcome to the stage Laura Gibson-Lamothe.
Woohoo!
Hi, Laura.
You guys for having me, and sorry, Shannon, for sharing with you my long version of
It's
my
okay.
bio. Yeah.
We actually had a really in-depth conversation about this today,
We
Laura,
did.
because it was a long version. Like we would normally shorten it down,
Yeah.
right? We would shorten it but we were like, it is Black History Month.
Black History.
It is, I'm seeing all the stories as we do all year, because, Black history is all year long, not just in the month of February, but so many Black women's voices saying our voices are not being heard, the depth and breadth of our experience is not being acknowledged. And so Shannon and I we had this whole conversation prepping for today's show. Like, we're reading the whole thing. We're giving you all your props, all your flowers. You are an incredible human being.
Thank you.
And the work that you're doing in the world needs to be recognized. So thank you.
No, I appreciate that. I think a lot of times there's, women in the industry or outside that don't take the opportunity to give themselves props and acknowledge what they have overcome. And I think it adds credibility to this conversation in regards to financial wellness. So I appreciate you guys having me here today, and I'm really excited to get into the topic.
Yes. Absolutely. So we've been talking about Georgia State, the universities, and everything that you have the opportunity to do for a minute now, right?
Yeah.
When you think about financial wellness, what comes up for you right now?
Well, so obviously the connection with financial technology and fintech, since that is, primarily where I spent most of my professional journey and career, foundationally, there's an aspect of financial awareness, which I think resonates when you think about financial wellness. All the things that you guys highlighted, introducing and teeing up the conversation today really resonates with me, because fintech, financial technology in its essence, is, technology that is enabling the way we interact with money. So how we transact, and how we are saving to how we are, managing payments, all of that transitions into the technology capabilities that are facilitating that as a mechanism. And so from a financial wellness perspective, I think foundationally, there's an aspect of financial literacy and an understanding of, some of the terminologies that we use, some of the best practices, all enabling that financial wellness component, which is basically essentially how do you manage your money, and how do you get out of the pattern that, I had grown up, which was, witnessing my family members live paycheck to paycheck and struggle to get by. And, I leverage financial technology, fintech, to break the mold. From a career perspective, it gave me a launch pad for opportunities to obviously grow and develop myself, my skills, and earn more money. But at the same time, parallel, I had to think about my financial wellness. And it started off with financial literacy, educating myself, equipping myself with the knowledge to be able to set myself up for success going forward. So I'm not underneath that same tremendous pressure and stress that I witnessed growing up.
Absolutely. I hear where you're coming from. So as you were working on your literacy and using these different tools and technology to your advantage, what do you feel like was maybe your biggest aha moment or the biggest piece of technology that helped you make the difference for yourself?
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned the text and I wrote it down, but get good with money. And I have that one as well. And I think she called herself a budgetnista.
Yes.
And essentially pieces of that resonated with me. I personally, people might call me crazy, but I live by spreadsheets. I always have. Like as a kid, like as soon as I got introduced into Excel, I love spreadsheets. I use them for personal vacations, for everything. And essentially, getting exposed to managing and budgeting in Excel was like my gateway into financial, wellness. It essentially was saying to myself, hey, let's get organized. Let's at least identify what all is out there. What monies do I have coming in and what's going out?
Yes.
And where can I, identify efficiencies within my budget? Where can I be mindful? How can I set a budget so I'm not spending and overspending in certain areas? But just having that visibility to what your current state situation is completely meaningful. And I think sometimes we overlook that tedious activity and task. I think like my grandmother once told me, and it's so funny because I'm not that old, but I definitely feel a little bit further removed from the checkbook and checkbook balancing and having that page where you're itemizing everything.
Yes.
With the advancement of digital technology, a lot of consumers and just customers have lost sight of that type of accounting practices.
Yes.
So you now have to replace what the generations before us were doing to manage their financials with the rapid pace that we're spending and transacting, with all of the Apple wallets and technology capabilities that we have today, with creating some sort of process for yourself that really fits what you're capable of doing in the timeline that makes sense for you, but coming up with that process and how you can, set that framework going forward for yourself individually.
I was thinking as Shannon was reading your intro, Laura, I was thinking, so my generation, like I'm not removed from it at all. Like I grew up my mom taught me how to use a checkbook. I was never really good at it, about the accounting at the end. So I am all about the electronics, right?
Right.
And I have become, my financial wellness has become so much better with the reminders, with the automatic payments, with the fact that, I can use my phone to get gas when I have left my wallet at home. There's all different things that until I met you and until we met and had lunch that day, like I really didn't understand because I didn't grow up with it, right? Like how big of a field this is, like how much is behind the scenes for finances, like in electronic finances in terms, well, I'll just be really transparent with y'all. When you were doing the introduction, I had this thought. I grew up in Texas and people used to literally hide money in mason jars in their backyard, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, I come from people that did that like 2 generations back, right?
Yeah.
And now we are here in this moment where literally you can do all your finances on your phone.
Yep.
And how many of them still don't trust it? Like there's still money under the mattress, right? It's just fascinating. And it is a whole field. It's a whole. So I want you to talk a little more about that too. So our listeners understand what you do and what Georgia Fintech is. Because it blew my mind. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. and every time I talk with people about, just the opportunities in fintech, they're so vast. And I think essentially just thinking about how businesses operate, essentially like all functions that a traditional business would need, these companies are also looking for. So end-to-end, solutions, end-to-end services, and they need people to operate across the board. But one of the things that's fascinating about fintech is, thinking about all of the mechanisms, from, managing your online banking account, seeing, the monies that you're depositing, whether it's a digital check. Now you can take an image of a check and deposit it versus going physically to a branch and signing it over, which I have done those deposit slips back in the day. So I recall that. But the new generation now, the younger folks have never had to do that. And so now it's about the speed in which that money gets deposited into your account. And so there's technology, rails, we call it, to establish the money movement and to make the transactions happen even faster. And that takes a full suite of technology. You need developers that are coding the technology and the software and the solutions and services. And I can get into technical stuff, API calls and all the architecture that's behind that and the infrastructure that's required to maintain the data and the memory of that data and archive that data. But then you also have the UI, the what we see as consumers when you log into your account, and how that's being managed. Is it usable? Can a customer intuitively understand how to make that deposit or how to move money from one account to the other? And so all of those pieces are, I think, at the surface level, when we talk about fintech, that, that's fintech, but then there's also fraud prevention. And I spent some time in fraud risk management as, the industry continues to evolve with these new capabilities and the speed of which they're deploying them. Fraudsters are back there trying to identify loopholes and ways to get money. We talked about, AI and the advancement with AI, and, you hear on Instagram, like deep fakes and people that are, masking and replicating voices off of like other posts and leveraging that to hack into accounts. And so there's teams of people that are, thinking about sophisticated solutions to circumvent or to prevent those, fraudsters from gaining access to accounts. And so there's so much variety in this space. And I think the opportunities are so vast. One thing that I'm really excited about with the Academy is, we're providing the education. So helping students identify, what pathway, they would align with to enter into the industry, and providing that exposure to students who might not have had that exposure otherwise. But then it's also layering the fact that there is the opportunities are limitless. From what I said earlier, when I talked about like loving spreadsheets, my gateway into fintech was the fact that I loved that. I loved project management. I love telling people what to do. Yeah, I love achieving goals. I'm a hoorah cheerleader, bring people together, get them all marching to the same deliverable and the same beat on the drum type mentality. And that resonated with me. I didn't know that looked like project management. I didn't know that looked like, fintech or financial industry and services, but it was mentors that guided me in that direction. And the combination of like, here's an opportunity, and you can make a lot of money in this field, is essentially what I am now evangelizing against all of these university forums that I have access to. And so the communication about the opportunity, exposing students who wouldn't otherwise known that there was even the opportunity in the first place, and then helping them by being an aid and a resource to pursuing that and transitioning into the industry is our whole goal at the FinTech Academy.
That's what I was going to ask is, will you tell our listeners what the Georgia FinTech Academy is?
Yes. So we are a USG, University System of Georgia, initiative collaborating with the 26 institutions, public-facing institutions across the university system to offer this program via a full set of curriculum. We have some students that are getting a certificate in fintech. Some are majoring and minoring in fintech, and we even have a master's degree program that launched about a year ago. And so we've seen a lot of success in the way that we're facilitating this across the university system, but it's not just the curriculum and the education. It's the network and the connectivity into the industry. And so we are, constantly doing events almost twice a night each week during each semester, where we have industry leaders come in and speak to students about various topics, emerging trends in the industry, things that really complement what we do in the classroom from a curriculum perspective. And then it also gives them a chance to meet with the company's recruiting function. So it's like, here's a little bit about the company culture, things you wouldn't know by just researching online or looking at their website. Here's, the internships and the timing for applying to internships. Here's, full job placement opportunities and opportunities to connect and network with their organizations. And so that particularly facilitates growing and kickstarting their network. These are young students and students who are adults that are continuing education. So there are a variety of backgrounds and ages and demographics, and diversity is a big element for us. In the state of Georgia, we have such a great mix. I mean, the university system has, I believe, over 350,000 students across the state of Georgia. And a large percentile is a great mix of diversity. And so we focus not only on our reach and spreading all of these opportunities that we've created, in addition to the speaker series and the career fairs, and we also have a podcast as well. But all of these formats we're spreading across, but also focusing on the diversity component as well, because that's essential. And I know we'll talk about diversity. For me, diversity is particularly important. And it's funny, when you're talking about earlier, reading through my, credentials and my bio. For me, I had been in so many situations where I was the only woman of color, or the only woman, period, in the room, especially in banking and in technology, in particular as a function. It's definitely more male, centric and focused. And so for me to be able to kind of give back in a way of influencing from a diversity perspective is extremely important. And we've been able to successfully do that through the Academy. And so that's the one thing that I'm like, I always keep that at the end because I'm the most excited about it and passionate about it, but it's super essential to what we do. It's not just, evangelizing on behalf of fintech and getting students the opportunity, but it's also making sure that we also promote diversity and give those opportunities across the board.
I love that. We have mentioned this statistic on this show before, but it was within my lifetime because it was in 1974 that women were allowed to get a credit card on their own without their husband's signature. And when you think about that, when you think about what you're talking about and the diversity of getting women into this field and being the people making the decisions versus when I was 4 years old, before I was 4, I mean, I was under 4, so I probably couldn't have had my own credit card anyways, but you know what I mean? Like, that's not too far away, y'all.
Not at all.
Now, before we get too far away, Shannon, you probably have a question, but I have kind of a silly question, but it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek question, Laura, because you are an expert in this field. Mm-hmm. I always want to know why banks can take money out of our accounts in seconds, but it takes 3 days to redeposit it. Can somebody figure out how to fix that part?
It's funny because the Federal Reserve launched this initiative called FedNow. It's instant payments, and we talk about like just the rapid pace of, or really keeping up with the customer expectation for being able to move money. And it's always been a hurdle. It's funny because back in my day, starting off in my fintech career, everything was run on like a batch scheduled day in. So you took the customer's money out. They may not see anything by end of day. We would have to wait for that batch data set to load. And then the next day you might see the transaction actually show that it came out of your account. But all of these processes are moving faster and faster. I think from a bank accounting perspective, it's like you're moving this money. We're accounting for taking it, but it might take 3 to 5, days to actually process that transaction. That bit is what's evolving. And there's been a lot of efforts, across the board from, payment processors, to, banking and financial institutions to expedite that process of that money movement. And so you see a lot of that. It is funny because applications that we all might be familiar with, like PayPal and.
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shayla Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shayla Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about 3 groups, really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all 3 steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. The story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
yes,
yay.
Tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. Especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
PayPal offers, at a cost, you could see that money, go into that account instantly, or you can wait the 3 to 4 business days for that to get into an account. So the mechanisms are there. It's just the adoption and some underlying technology needs to catch up to get there.
Thank you. I knew I wasn't the only one with that question.
Great answer.
And Lord forbid you're trying to move money from, one account, it's a meaty sum, right? Because now it's there's additional review processes from an operations perspective. They got to make sure it's there to clear. Then they have to confirm, with the bank. It's still very piecemeal and very manual. And so I think in the next, 5 to 10 years, that process across the board, everyone will catch up in the industry and it will be a lot more fluid as far as money movement goes.
And
but
it's
you gotta
so
think about it, risk to it too, right? Because
right?
once that money goes, it's gone. And I've seen, wire fraud, people who are making a down payment on a house, we're talking large sums of money, the fraudsters can get in between that wire transfer. And when that money is gone, they can't get it back. And so sometimes the slowness of the process allows for the due diligence and allows for the verification. But speeding that up takes away a lot of it. So the risk kind of resides on the financial institution. And so there's a lot of factors to consider. How fast do you want to lose your money?
So question. Laura, as you say that, I realize I owe my husband an apology, as you're saying that, because when we were buying the current house we live in, there was a couple of days delay, and he was really anxious and he was freaking out. It was sitting there. They just had not identified where it was. And I was like, you're overreacting. I realize now with you saying that, he probably was not overreacting, and I owe him an apology. I probably just didn't have the understanding of how it really could be taken away and we could lose our down payment. So just saying that on air, I can admit when I'm wrong. So
listen to this episode.
Right.
He does.
And he probably will.
He is one of our biggest fans.
Yes.
So Joe, I apologize. You were right. I was wrong. And we have a joke in our family that you get 2 of those a year from me. So
we're in February,
right? We're starting out early this year.
Hey, Joe, that's a good rule to know, though. 2 a year, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now maybe I need to scale back a little bit. That makes sense.
Right? Yeah. We've been married a long time, Shannon. Like, we got to have that realistic expectation.
It's important. It's important. And shout out to the house, too. The house is there, is taken care of, housing a lot of events and everything. So we're good, thankfully.
Oh, man. Just mentioning your husband made me think about, we were talking about financial wellness.
Yes.
But also is around family units. Like, just the conversation that you just mentioned. I'm like, good for you guys for communicating to each other during that point. Because sometimes, like, the lack of communication causes even more, stress and concern over certain things. So, as a unit, it's important to have those conversations. And it's essential. And sometimes when you haven't necessarily seen that pattern in your life to replicate, it's hard to kind of introduce that into your life. And I've been married now almost coming up on 2 years, and it's a blending of everything. So it's like almost like relearning, like it's not just me. I'm now, accountable and responsible for communicating some of these, major financial decisions and opportunities with my partner.
Yes. So is there anything that you do specifically for yourself that makes it easier?
I'm still learning, but I do feel like it's funny because I introduced my spreadsheet. My husband does not love spreadsheets. Joy and passion that I had, over these spreadsheets. And so when I showed it to him, let's just say his eyes were a little bit wide while he was looking at this. It's not too massive, but we were like, we're married now. We got to marry our budget. We had to like sit and look at this differently. And there was so much redundancy. We talk about like, just the speed of technology and how it's evolved, but like subscriptions get out of hand. And I'm like, well, now we got redundant subscriptions. We don't both need Netflix accounts. We're in the same household. And so it was almost like a consolidation at the micro level of all these things that we could save money on. I actually use Rocket Money, a shameless plug for Rocket Money.
Yes.
But I love that because I found some things like going way back that I needed to turn off and subscribe. So kudos to Rocket Money. And they use Plaid actually as an underlying technology, which Plaid is kind of like the gateway to connecting all of your accounts and linking them into that one universal view to see where your money is. But I was able to like terminate in some of these subscriptions and balance the monies. My husband and I, if he had some sort of program or subscription that was included with a credit card, for example, like some credit card for, what do you call it? A year's worth of Disney Plus or something like that.
That makes sense.
So then we found, hey, I don't need to also, contribute and have that same bill coming through monthly as well,
Right. Yes.
Okay, Laura, you talking about that. Now I got a big question. I don't know if you're willing to share or not, but like, what are the apps that you personally use? Because you are a fintech expert. So what do you use? Like when you are like this, and you said Rocket Money, but what else do you use? Because I'm about to take some notes over here.
I know this is an endorsement. It's funny because I had an Elvest, ELLE Vest account. And it's a account targeted towards women. And financial wellness is a big piece of the platform that they offer. They talk about your goals, your financial goals. And so like maybe before the pandemic, I started getting into that and looking into using that more as a resource. Because I think maybe like 10, 15 years ago, I pivoted from like just hoarding money. I wanted to build my savings. It was all about building savings. Like I invested in a property. I bought my first house, 10 years ago. I, had these like mini micro goals for myself. I started focusing on retirement, and then I'm like, I need to put more than just what the company matches. So good there. But then I'm like, how do I invest?
Yes.
Investments is like huge. And I think a lot of women tend to, not have as much of a risk appetite when it comes to investing, but there are safe ways to invest. There are ways to educate yourself so that you're comfortable investing. And there's different types of investment portfolios and accounts. And so I use Fidelity, and I'm a big Fidelity person. So I actually found Fidelity through my retiring in-laws.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm familiar with Fidelity investments, but like I didn't have a banking product and any other products with them. But they do a lot of educational tutorials, webinars, like resources beyond just, bank with us and give us your money,
right,
or invest with us. And so I definitely really appreciate Fidelity and the types of resources that they provided for their customers. And so I also leverage them as an investment portfolio as well. And they have lots of tutorials online. There's guides online. And then they also have the webinars where you can actually like hear from people firsthand that are experts in the investment space. I also play around with Robinhood. So
I have been so curious about that.
I love it. I mean, first of all, you guys don't know this about me, but back in the day, I was like an avid gamer.
Okay.
PlayStation. I got a PS5 in my lady cave, I call it. And the aspect of being able to like trade or like kind of live a side life as a day trader, I initially started off putting like fun money in there. But then I started betting on some safe, investments like Uber and Amazon. And it's just fun to kind of see the rise. Like, I think one of the things that I have to remind myself is that it's a long-term play, not a short-term. And of course, it's fun to see monies go up. It hurts your heart when it goes down. And I've seen a lot since 2020 with, recessions and like dives, ebbs and flows as far as how money and the market has moved essentially. But it's really fun to like experience and just witness and see some of the data that's in the app. So you don't necessarily need to invest to get your foot into, different types of portfolios or stocks, I should say, and how they're performing and see that data over time. You can see it in that tool in a very cool way. So I do like using that app.
Do you use any apps? I know you're a spreadsheet fan. So does that do all your budgeting, or do you have any apps that you use for budgeting or things that you would recommend to our listeners?
So I will recommend mint.com. So I would like to say I grew up using that. When I was fresh out of college working for my first bank, Bank of America, it was huge to be able to integrate with or be able to support mint.com. I think a lot of banks are very cautious about data and access, and are we creating risk by connecting and integrating with third parties. And so mint.com kind of revolutionized the idea or the concept of being able to holistically look at your portfolio and be able to manage the money and set budgets and do things like a savings for a specific thing that you might have, an event coming up in your life. And so I like mint.com. But Ally, who I used to work for, they also have taken tremendous strides in developing their UI to be able to do some of the similar things as far as creating life events and budgets and saving. And so they've created these like little buckets, I think is the appropriate term, but buckets for these things that you can track and see. It's all about the visualization of data. And I think both, Ally Bank and Mint.com as a resource have been able to do that really well.
Beautiful. And I look forward to investing. And one thing that I'm already steadying myself for, right, is the market fluctuations. So I hear you on the celebration when it goes up. What do you do to steel yourself and not pull the money out when it goes down?
I feel like the safe bet is to use, what do they call it? The S&P like 500s, like these index portfolios that have a mix of companies already, groomed and cultivated into this. I used to say like a box. It's like a investment in a box. Like here's a good mix of, 25, 50 companies that you should invest in. They already pre-anticipated and thought out how your money is allocated across that portfolio. And so I invest in that just generally and read about that and keep that in mind. But then what you're talking about is not being reactive and to kind of pull the trigger. When things come down, they typically come back up.
Right.
And to be honest, over time, it's just really cool to see how that progresses. And, a lot of my 401k and everything else is built towards that in mind, for the long term. And in the short term, I've been, thinking about, properties and, I had a house in Charlotte, rented it out, sold it, moved to Atlanta, invested in the property I have here. And just being able to see that equity grow is also setting me up for financial wellness in the future when I hit that next phase of life, which hopefully is retirement at some point.
I love that. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. The S&P 500, that's what you said it's called?
Yeah. I think I hope I'm not incorrect in that, but it's an index fund.
Gotcha.
An index fund is a multitude of investment accounts that they create into one batch portfolio, and you can invest in that.
That makes sense.
Kind of like hierarchy is what is where your money is being managed. You don't have to necessarily think about it at the micro level, which is like I want to invest in an Uber or
right. So you're saying instead of an investor picking individual stocks, and you might pick 5 stocks that all lose value that year, right? You're saying that these are preset stocks. It's a preset portfolio that hopefully will keep you at a good place based on what the experts are predicting this set of businesses to do together.
Yes. And they have already run models. There's models and there's like probabilities. I mean, tools like Fidelity, for example, will aid you in like gauging your risk appetite. Like, is this the right index fund for you? You know what I mean? What are your retirement goals? Are you looking at the next 10 years, the next 20 years? Because those investments might look completely different. And how you cash out, how you plan to cash out on that could look completely different based on the timing. And so being able to use those tools to advise and pick, but I do like the grouping and having that analytics that goes behind it versus weighing on an individual independent one, which you don't know if a company can fold. And you hear stuff in the news, like, the CEO change and all of a sudden the stock just dropped by like 30% or something like that. And so like keeping it at that like level, I think is really, really encouraging as far as, taking a little bit of that risk out of the mix.
That makes sense.
Here's what I love, Laura.
Yeah.
I love how excited you are about finances. And I love how excited, your passion, right? Because so many women I've met, are intimidated by it, or they don't know how to do it, or they don't want to talk about it, right? Or they get shamed for it, or it's a fight. And I see in you, you're like, wow, we got these tools. Let me teach you how to do it. Let's do this, y'all. And then when you tied in about you being a gamer, this can be fun. This doesn't have to be stressful. It can be really fun as a career, as something that we're doing for financial wellness. And that just radiates off of you. And I love it. It inspires me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check some of these resources you gave us out.
Yes.
I'm glad you say that, because I definitely feel like as a woman, I feel the most secure and independent when I have a good grasp over my money. And over time, I've come to appreciate that has been a mechanism that has empowered me to make decisions that have downstream financial ramifications. But like in the immediate, it gives me so much power over my life and where I want to take my life. And so I feel like it's a tool that every woman should have in their toolkit, which is why I think I'm so excited about it.
Right?
Yes.
So I have one or two more questions about your program, and then I know we got to move towards Wisdom in Action. But Laura, who can get involved with Georgia Fintech? Like I heard you say it's traditional students, but also like if we've got a mom coming back into the workforce, say after raising her kids, would Georgia Fintech be a place for her?
Yeah. So we, on our website, georgiafintechacademy.org, we outline all aspects of what we cover and offer. From a curriculum perspective, it's purely at one of the 26 universities. However, the other programming that we have is accessible to folks who are interested and just curious about fintech. And we're starting to do more and more community engagement and involvement. So in-person events and opportunities to connect around fintech. And so I would advise, if you're that mom that's coming back into the workforce, sign up for our newsletter, look for opportunities. We also have and are always looking for folks to volunteer. Mentorship can look like a lot of different things. And I constantly have conversations with people who discount their life experiences and their level of education or level of expertise, stating that they wouldn't be beneficial to, said student. Literally everyone has something to offer, even if it's a listening ear or a shoulder to cry on, you got something to offer. And so on our website, georgiafintechacademy.org/volunteer, we have a form. You can volunteer for any of the functions that we have to offer, from mentorship to participating in sessions, to, participating in our podcast. But we have a lot of different opportunities to connect. And so those two channels, our website, the volunteer aspect, are typically ways to engage with us. And follow us on LinkedIn. We're always posting things on LinkedIn. And that's one of those things where the Atlanta community is, there's a plethora of opportunities here in central metro Atlanta. I cannot say it enough. And I'm out here trying to, share, the community partners events that I'm close with. We talked about my board appointment with Paytech Women. They have conferences, they have webinars, they have a membership platform and program all centered around helping women specifically in the industry. And so they always have events that we're socializing and amplifying using our platforms. There's local events and conferences that we continue to try to socialize as well as much as possible. I can think of 5 associations and organizations that are really here in Atlanta that are doing things constantly on a monthly, weekly basis. And so there's plenty of opportunities to connect in Atlanta. It's just taking advantage of those opportunities.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and if you have some of those that you want us to link on the show notes, we absolutely can.
Yeah.
We can link those on our show notes. That'd be great.
Perfect.
Yes. So every week, Laura, we talk about what we're doing specifically for ourselves to maintain our wellness in the dimension we're talking about. So what are you doing for yourself this week for financial wellness?
I would say it's so funny. I'm going on vacation tomorrow to the Bahamas, I'm sorry, not the Bahamas. Everyone's been talking about Bahamas, but I'm like,
okay. Where are you going?
I'm going to Negril.
Yes, Jamaica,
7 Mile Beach. Yeah.
Okay.
Sandals Resort. My first time at a Sandals, so we'll see how that goes. But as a planner, I told myself, let me disconnect and really enjoy. I earned this, this experience of having a vacation. It's also my birthday next week.
Oh, happy early birthday.
Oh, man. And I don't know why, and this probably goes back to the analytical spreadsheet lover, but it's an opportunity for me to recalibrate what I want for my life. And I don't know if you guys hear it in my voice, but I love where I am today. I love the job that I have. I thank God every day, because it literally is my dream job. Stepping out of the industry to work as a connector for people into the industry is such a mission that I am extremely passionate about. And it has allowed me to, not, relinquish the momentum I'm making financially, my career stability, like all of those things are positives, but I always constantly am thinking about like, what's next? What can I do? Not only to fulfill myself, but to take care of the other aspects of my life. And so I'm at a stage where I'm like recalibrating, I should say, my financial goals, recalibrating what it takes to get there, and just kind of like level setting, vision boarding, essentially. And then having those conversations with my husband while I'm on vacation and there's no distractions and I'm shutting down all access to my email is a great place to, facilitate some of the conversations.
Yeah. While you're on the beach and you got your favorite beverage in your hand and you're relaxed and there's no stress.
Yes.
What a great place to have a financial meeting with your partner. Like, I love that. I'm like,
yes, enjoy it.
Yeah. And then it can be fun and relaxing and connecting and all the things.
Yeah.
So I heard in all of that, #recalibrate is what I heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What about you, Shannon? What are you doing this week?
Oh, what am I doing? I'm right now recalibrate. I'm also recalibrating, honestly. Let's see what else. What I will say is, because I need to revisit the budgets for everything, right? For the businesses, for myself. So I'm going to use yours from volume 1, Christine, your chapter, and say #back to basics.
All right.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think mine goes along with both of y'all's, but because of travel and things like that, my husband and I haven't had our regular, we try to do financial meetings on the regular, and we haven't had one in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to #reconnect about finances.
Yeah.
So, cause things change all the time. And so just doing that touch in and making sure we're on the same page about a few things. Yeah, I think that would be good. But
I love it. I love you and Joe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm pretty proud of us too. But yeah, I am, Laura, this has been the most, I'm going to be really honest. It has been the most fun I've ever had talking about financial wellness.
I love all the resources.
And we've had a lot of great guests in this topic. But this is the one, and I wrote about it in chapter 1 on volume 1, about like when you're not raised to talk about finances, when it's not your comfort zone, it can be really intimidating. It can be. And so your passion is just so inspiring to me. I'm like, all right, I'm back in it. What are my current apps? What am I doing? It's about that time of year for taxes, like all the things. I'm like, all right, we got this.
We got this.
Right?
Yes, we got this.
Don't get me started on taxes.
Right.
Is that a good? Don't get me started. Or
do you have an app? Do you have an app, or what is your fintech that you use?
Have an app for that, but I love just following. Like, social media is such a complex tool. It could be, there's pros and cons. Right. But I'm just curious about just how people manage their money and how there's loopholes and maybe different pathways from a tax, incentives type perspective. I know a lot of folks who have businesses, LLCs, and, they're filing out of state, or they're, doing different creative things that I have never. And it's funny because a lot of those conversations, to your point earlier, is generational. Like, there's these tips that people hand, generation to generation within their family unit. And, growing up where, money was not plentiful, we weren't talking about how, creatively we're filing our taxes. We're just talking about getting it done and not getting penalized.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's a whole world of I want to say maybe financial equity. Like, how do you get folks that are in situations where they're desperate, to just make a living, to make ends meet, to get to the point where they're not there, they're now in a path where they've been able to create a sustainable lifestyle. And then beyond that, the next level is like generational wealth, which we could talk about that another time, but like the generational wealth aspect, which is what I feel like the FinTech Academy in the end, that is our social responsibility, is to help these young people navigate their, educational careers, become working professionals, but then care for them beyond that, and create that pattern where they're breaking the cycle of having that, constraint in their life. And now they're thinking about, like I'm doing, which is opening, bonds and CDs and other types of accounts for my niece who's 6 years old. That she's got monies, you know what I mean? Where she graduated from high school, and maybe she can, make a decision around, going to college or pursuing a different path because she's already set up for success. Credit, how credit works. And, I was 20 when my grandmother put me as a authorized user on an account, and that really transformed my credit. Like, now I had a credit history, and I'm like, people know this stuff, but there's no, textbook that, is being passed down in these family units. It's just the social awareness of that.
Well, and I would go as far to say people know this stuff. And a lot of times that people who do know that stuff don't share on purpose. Yeah. And I think we're starting to change some of that with technology, with the fact that it can't be hidden anymore, and with conversations like this. Okay, yeah, check this out or do this. And you do have access, but sometimes the rules are so unwritten, or the rules are so out there. I follow Robert Reich, who used to be the labor secretary, and I follow him, and he was talking about how, especially when there's the myth and the thing around finances in this country, right? Yeah. And that the top 1%ers literally get a tax break. There's a yacht tax, right? Like, we got folks who are paying, like folks in poverty that are paying 35, 40% on taxes. And it's just that thing about how our system has been set up and being able to understand it, because it's complicated. I mean, anybody that's filed taxes knows how complicated our system is. Yeah. And it's like, and it was set up to keep certain people in power and with wealth and certain people out. So I think as we start to look at this and talk about this, I think it's important. I think it's an important conversation to understand it. And like you said at the very top of the show, like, financial wellness is equal to financial literacy, and figuring that piece out, I think, is crucial. So thank you.
Can I put a shameless plug for?
Absolutely.
Oh, FIS, literally spelled FIS, financialliteracy.com. They have a young adult and adult financial literacy tool that is open to the public. You don't have to pay for it. They have tons of modules. They've gamified and made it look, fun and creative. But resources like that is what I feel like it takes to move the needle. And we're looking at integrating that within what we do at the Academy, like creating a badge for students, incentivizing them to take this financial literacy journey as a prerequisite before we talk about like banking 101. Like, why go there without having the foundation and the framework and understanding of, terminology and financial literacy acumen.
And you said it was FLS.com?
FIS.
FIS. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, very cool. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I hate to end this conversation, but we're over time, and it's so good. good. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for taking the time. We know how busy you are.
Yes.
Thank you for making space for us, especially right before your vacation and your birthday.
Happy
I'm looking
birthday.
forward to this. So I thank you so much. I will be having a margarita for you both.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
and
you.
just
Spicy
looking
watermelon.
at the ocean and I'm from Texas, and so I'm pretty standard. Like, I like it just original, fresh ingredients.
Yep.
Best tequila you can get. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Now is it happy hour? I think it's past that time.
It is.
Past that time.
It's dinner time now.
Thank you so much for being our guest today, Laura. And we look forward to connecting with you when you get back from your vacation. And just thank you for what you're doing for the students of Georgia and all the information and your passion around this topic. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Of course. You're
welcome. Talk to you soon. Oh my goodness. I could just keep going with her for hours. I want to know more.
We're going to have another conversation.
Right?
Definitely.
We're back. That would be great. Well, I know we're over time. So is there anything you want to shout out? Anything that we want to be sure and say? I'm going to say go. You go, and then I'll go.
So what I'm thinking about is our conference. We have the second, right? We have the second annual virtual summit. This is what we do, right? Sharing stories, sharing resources from experts from around the world. You know and love some of our volume 2 authors. They will be there. And we're looking forward to some sponsors coming in and bringing different information. We're going to have a great time. So if you want to get connected to the 8 Dimensions of Wellness and need more resources, go on over to Humantix, get your ticket, go to the womenconnectedinwisdom.com and get plugged into what we have for you.
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing you. It's always a good time. And I think it's going to be super fun.
And we do have a couple of more things, actually. So it is February, right? We talked about Black History Month. That means next week is Valentine's Day, and we will be with the booze, taking space to maintain our wellness. So we will not be live.
I thought you said with the booze instead of with the booze. I was like, wait, are we drinking next Wednesday?
Well, off the list for this year.
But we're with our our
talked about it. We talked about some wine. But yes, we were taking time with our partners. That's what we say, right? And we will not be live with you. So catch one of the replays. It's episode 147. They're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I also
everywhere you can find your favorite podcast, right?
Everywhere you can find it.
We were looking at our demographics today, and most of the downloads come from Apple Podcasts. So thank you, Apple Podcast listeners. We appreciate you. Yeah.
And we are almost at 30,000. So I'm excited to pass that line. And we'll see you guys live at 5, not next week, like we usually say, but in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yes. You have anything else we should say?
No, I'm just excited about the upcoming conference, excited to be connected, and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Me too. Okay, guys, we'll see you soon. In the meantime, don't forget,
be well,
be wise,
and be whole.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.